7:30.
This is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite.
For decades, a 400-foot radio tower at Rocky Point on New York's Long Island was a mainstay of overseas communications. It was the principal antenna in RCA's Radio Central, linking the U.S. to the rest of the world. But underseas cables and communication satellites have made the tower obsolete the day RCA set off a dynamite charge at the base of the 150-ton structure and brought it crashing to the ground. The Radio Central Tower will be sold as scrap metal.
Chuck Scarborough and News Center 4 next. It's 5 o'clock.
An historic Long Island landmark was toppled today. The 410-foot radio antenna, erected by RCA in 1921, has outlived its usefulness, and today it came down. Chauncey Howell was out at Rocky Point.
About 44 stories tall, 150 tons of structural steel, 56 years old is not the kind of thing you want to be hanging around during a high windstorm. So why are we here today out in Rocky Point, Long Island? I guess nobody can resist seeing something like the last remaining RCA radio telegraph tower here at this installation come down with a crash. In 1921, this was called Radio Central, the most modern wireless station in the world, and there were 12 towers here then. President Warren G. Harding pressed the button that opened this facility. Today it was the demolition experts, guys like John Gentle and Dave Evans, who had the lead roles in the closing ceremony, if you will.
After we get this all set up, I'm going to go put a wooden match out there, and the tip of it's going to hit the match.
Mr. Hepburn, you've been working around these towers and this one, too, I suppose, for a long time. Are you going to miss it?
Oh, no, never. I don't think you miss the old soldiers when they go to rest. They're retired. You know, now we've got some satellites up in the sky, and we've got some coaxial cables under the ocean that carry, hundreds and hundreds of times the messages that this system carried.
4 minutes.
Well then, just so that everybody's sure that there's no lingering remorse, so that Dave Evans can light that fuse and then run for his life. Now, we all love a big crash as much as Dave and John do, so here it is again for you blast buffs. Satisfied? Not as much as Dave and John are. You see, they have the salvage rights. In Rocky Point, this is Chauncey Howell, News Center 4.
The Holiday Cartoon Festival every night this week at 8. It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
Good evening, I'm Bill Jorgensen, and this is Channel 5's 10 o'clock news. For more than half a century, the most powerful transmitting station in the world was at Rocky Point, Long Island. It flashed messages to 4 continents until undersea cables and then satellites finally made it obsolete. Our Bob O'Brien was a witness to the dramatic end of a communications relic today.
RCA's Radio Central facility here in Rocky Point, Long Island, officially opened November 5th, 1921. On that day, President Warren Harding threw a switch in the White House that put Radio Central on the air. David Sarnoff, then general manager of RCA, tapped out a Morse code message to the world from Harding, hailing the new facility as a milestone in bringing the nations of the world together. 19 countries acknowledged receiving that message. 4 replied within 15 seconds. For decades afterwards, Radio Central remained the most powerful radio station on the planet, the hopping-off point for messages to Europe and Central and South America. There used to be a row of 12 of these 410-foot high antennas stretched for 3 miles. 11 of them were demolished in the 1950s and early 60s as radio technology bypassed the need for such elaborate antennas. Radio traffic was shifted to newer transmitting facilities. Now, RCA wants to close Rocky Point and sell the 10-square-mile tract of land that used to be Radio Central. So for $2,500 and the $4,000 worth of scrap steel from the tower, demolition experts John Gentle and David Evans agreed to do the job of blasting down the 40-story antenna. Evans explained the trick of his trade.
I have 8 charges here all told. All these 8 charges will be spliced in with this primer cord. The primer cord detonates at 21,000 feet per second. A blasting cap will be set off within a trunk line with all this stuff, with all this primer cord coming into one area, will simultaneously explode all the charges. It's, in simple words, that's what's going to happen.
And the tower should then fall?
Will fall right in that direction right there.
Shortly after 2:30 this afternoon, Evans lit a slow-burning fuse and hightailed it to a waiting police car for a quick getaway. 4 minutes and 25 seconds later, the tower went. Watch. Demolition man John Gentle tells me he put a stick in the ground at the spot where he figured the tip of the falling tower should hit. It missed, but only by about an inch. So with the demolition of this tower, the age of long-wave radio communications goes into the history books. Even the vacuum tube, which made shortwave communications possible and long-wave obsolete, has been replaced by the transistor. Now, the age of satellite communications is upon us. One wonders what will replace that and how its passing will be marked. From Rocky Point, Long Island, this is Bob O'Brien, Channel 5 News.